TBIC, the best in sports entertainment. We're here live in Empowerment USA. TNS Media Group is the team and the family. So we had a great weekend of boxing. A lot of people were tuned in. New York, Broadway was on fire because we had a lot of good fights down there. I'll start with the fights that we saw. Most notably, I'll start here with Ryan Garcia and Rolly Romero. Ryan Garcia and Rolly Romero was a fight that, like I said, this fight was destined to happen at some point. They had a lot of history, like I said, from their sparring match. The sparring match they had over 2-3 million views. A lot of people watched this fight, so people were looking to watch this fight, looking to see this fight at some point. Even Floyd Mayweather, he said if Ryan Garcia can beat Rolly Romero, I'll give him $200,000 or whatever the case may be. This was years ago, before Ryan even became who he is now as a boxer, and Rolly even getting to this point as well. Myself, I picked Ryan to clip Rolly or actually be victorious in this fight against Rolly Romero, because I thought that Rolly Romero's chin was a little damaged due to the fact that the losses and knockout losses that he had. I thought that he was going to probably be kind of shell-shocked and wouldn't be able to withstand the left hand or left hook that Ryan Garcia throws. But I was wrong. Rolly Romero played it safe, boxed better than I even expected. Even heard Terrence Bud Crawford mention that he picked Rolly Romero to do for the upset. Now, looking at the fight, and from what I've seen, I mean, Rolly Romero, he dropped Ryan Garcia, I believe, in the second round with a double left hook. I think that this fight was a fight that wasn't the right comeback fight for Ryan Garcia. I think that this fight was a fight that he should have probably took after a warm-up fight. Maybe he overlooked Rolly Romero. Maybe they thought that this was an easy win because they saw Rolly Romero lose a few fights and he wasn't the same, and he was able to be touched and be rocked, and he was able to be dropped and stopped and so forth and so on. So they probably wanted Ryan Garcia to look like he was back. But I think this was a bad fight. This was a bad matchmaking for them, because Rolly Romero is actually a game. He's actually a champion. He was WBA champion at some point, and he is a fighter that you can't overlook, because you heard Tank say he has power that you can't really. You have to respect it. Basically, you got to respect his power. So he came to the fight. Rolly Romero came to the fight with nothing to lose, everything to gain, and he did just that. He gained everything. Now he has people looking at him. He's going to have more notable fights, possibly a rematch with Ryan Garcia at some point. Now let's flip to Ryan Garcia. We see Ryan Garcia after the fight. You see him crying in the vehicle. Now these weren't tears of that you see from a fighter. These were tears from him. Just I believe these tears were just disappointment tears. And you have to understand that this is a brutal sport. And he may have thought he was going to win the fight. He may have felt like he left some things in the ring that he could have did differently. But ultimately, he was kind of embarrassed behind his loss. And I say this to say that, Ryan Garcia had a rough, 1 or 2 years. He's been accused of drug abuse and using PEDs. He was suspended from the fights. And a lot of people were saying that he was going through things that, a young kid at his age shouldn't go through. And now these things happened. All that compounded with the loss that he just suffered from Rolly Romero. I think he should be on suicide watch, honestly. I'm not just saying that because, and I say this not saying he's going to do something to himself, but you have to really pay attention to the mental aspect in him being affected mentally, because this is a brutal sport. Like I said, this guy has everything. He has the financial stability. He has all the accolades, well, a few accolades as a professional boxer. He has some big time fights, some notable wins and some notable losses, and he doesn't seem like he's the happiest person. With all these accolades. And then you compound that, what I said, with this rough 1-2 years he had with the loss to Rolly Romero, somebody who he should have beat. And now you put all these things together, and I think this kid should be on, like, people, anyone who's around him should pay attention to him, make sure that he's cool. Watch what he's doing with his time. Don't let him get out here and start, falling into drugs and getting drunk or whatever the case may be. He said he was sober. He said he's been clean. But these type of things can cause people to relapse, because people don't understand that it's a lot of pressure on these fighters to not only make weight, to be conditioned the right way, and also ultimately to win. So now he goes into this fight. I believe he has 2 more fights left with Golden Boy, and all this pressure on this kid. This is a young kid who has millions and millions of dollars, and he's trying to find his way mentally now. The money. Money is not that important when you have. You can accomplish money, or you can accomplish things and generate and make millions and millions of dollars. But it doesn't really mean anything if you don't have your mental aspect. How can you spend the money if you're mentally not there? You don't have the the capacity mentally to focus. So now it's worthless because you can't enjoy it. So I want everyone to pay attention to Ryan Garcia and not and get away from putting these fighters down. You've seen Romero lose and get knocked out or whatever to Tank, and he lost that fight, and when he's walking to the ring, they made all these different kind of memes and so forth and so on. So Rolly has been through it. He's been through the lows, he's been through the highs, and he understands this. But Ryan Garcia, he hasn't, he lost to Tank, and he kind of, but this is different. You lose to a fighter that everyone expected you to beat. But Tank, it was like a 50-50 fight. Some people were saying Ryan was going to win, some people were saying Tank was going to win. But this fight was like, the odds were like in his favor, saying that he was going to win this fight, and he ultimately loses this fight. So I think his mental state is probably not in the best place. So I just want everyone around him to pay attention to him and to understand that he's a human being. He's not Superman. He's King Ryan Garcia from what he says himself as a boxer, but ultimately he's Ryan Garcia the person. So just be careful. Understand that this fight that he just lost may have not only been in the ring, may have been outside of the ring. So just pay attention to Ryan Garcia, in my opinion. You need home care services for yourself, but you don't know where to begin. Please allow Mecca Care to help you. Call now, 215-644-8341. Another fight we had on this card here was, Devin Haney returned to the ring. Devin Haney, this fight, he moved around in this fight. He was like moving around a little bit too much for me, in my opinion, too much. I just think that the engagement within the ring, I don't think he was, he won the fight ultimately, so you got to win. I just think that he just did a little bit too much running, which ultimately may have hurt his stock. And I'm saying this because, Devin Haney undisputed, at 135, you won all the belts. Then he took a loss to Ryan Garcia, and I understand he wanted to switch it up, wanted to change things, whereas though he's not being hit so much. But I think that it's a difference when you're moving around the way almost to the point where you're running. You know what I'm saying? When you don't have to. I know that he was facing a dangerous puncher or a pressure fighter, but ultimately he should have probably stood in the pocket a little bit, kind of not too much, but I think it was really too much running in this fight. Now he did what he had to do to get the win. I just think that this hurt his stock, and then ultimately with Ryan Garcia losing as well, so that rematch may be put off for some time. I don't know if people still want to see the rematch based off the actual performances of the two fighters. So what do you get with Ryan Garcia coming off of a fight with Romero, which he was knocked down and lost the fight, and then you have Devin Haney, who did win, but ultimately did he win the attention of the fans who want to come out and pay their money to see him and Ryan Garcia fight again with both of these fighters and their performances? I don't really know. I know the fight was big, and people may still want to see it, but it may not be as big as it should be because of the two outcomes in the fight. Of course, with the loss of Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, ultimately, moving around for all 12 rounds of the fight, which made the fight very, very boring, in my opinion. Now, the other fighter we had on the card, Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez, he fought. He fought well. Showed skill. Showed that he's willing to exchange. Stood in the pocket. Moved around a little bit, but he was just Teofimo Lopez. He was the Teofimo that we're accustomed to seeing. In my opinion, I was a little afraid of him possibly dumbing it down for the competition. Like I said, Teofimo would kind of, fight a lesser fighter. Instead of getting him out of there, he would kind of dumb his, in my opinion, he would dumb it down, whereas he would kind of be on their level instead of elevating above their level and also getting them out of there because they don't belong in the ring with him. But this leads me to say something. I think that even with all his performances, you see, Ryan Garcia versus Rolly, you see Devin Haney in his fight, and you see Teofimo in his fight, and then you compare those fights to Gervonta Tank Davis, and this leads me to believe that Tank is still the cash cow. Tank is still Tank, because Tank and Lamont Roach, that fight was very, very entertaining, in my opinion. Even though it ended in a draw, you can say, people say Tank lost, say Tank won, but ultimately, in my opinion, even though Tank didn't stop Lamont, that fight was very, very entertaining. That fight was a back and forth fight. Both of those fighters came to fight. So now this is a win for Tank. Tank is not going to lose. He's not going to lose anything because people were looking to see the outcome of these fights to kind of compare it to what Tank was doing. But in my opinion, Tank didn't lose anything, and he's still number one in that division, 135 pounds. Even though these fighters were fighting at catch weights, but I look forward to seeing Tank come back, whether it be in July or June or July, whenever he comes back, or end of the year versus one of the Paul brothers, you know, I look for the Tank to still be the king of the 135 division, and ultimately probably one or two in the boxing world, in my opinion.
If you're a caregiver, please check your pay stubs to be sure you're paid for overtime. Here at Make a Care, we make sure you're getting paid time and a half for overtime. Call now.
Another fight we had this weekend was Canelo Alvarez. He fought Skull. In my opinion, this was a boring fight. This fight was really, really boring. I'm not saying Canelo made it boring. I'm not saying the Skull made it boring. I'm just saying that, you know, collectively together, the output, everything in this fight was, you know, ultimately very, very, in my opinion, boring. I mean, I don't think that, you know, Canelo was pressing the action too much. I just didn't get what I was expecting Canelo to stop him because, you know, me, in my opinion, I haven't really heard anything about Skull and his abilities until I saw him ready to fight Canelo. I think Canelo was trying to pick an easy fight to go into his fight versus Terrence Crawford. Now, what I'll do is I'll just fast forward to that fight. You know, after the Canelo fight, Crawford and Canelo, they were face to face. From what I saw them face to face, as you know, they're, as far as size and height, they both are, you know, actually Crawford looked like he's a little bit taller than Canelo. Now, as far as weight and, you know, the body shape of the body, as far as the, you know, the shoulders, the width of the shoulders, and you know, things of that nature, I think that Canelo was a lot bigger than not only Dewey, a lot bigger than Bud Crawford, in my opinion, as far as his physique, which could possibly have problems for Bud Crawford in that fight, and he's moving up 2 weight classes, so. You know, the chips are stacked against Crawford, in my opinion. But if anyone can do this, can pull up this fight against, 168 pound or whatever weight they fight at, would be Crawford. Terrence Crawford would be the one that I believe that can get this job done. Now, flip side, Canelo. Canelo is somebody who you can't, as you know, Canelo is somebody who you cannot sleep on. Now, me, I can't say that Crawford would get stopped in this fight. I just think that if Canelo really pressures Crawford and really makes him fight, it can get very, very interesting because, you know, Crawford is moving up in 2 weight classes. He's daring to be great. We have to respect that. After his dominant performance over Spence, he's now moved on and, you know, beat some notable fighters. Now he's going to fight the ultimate, you know, competitor, which is Canelo Alvarez, and he's never fought higher than 154 pounds and only had, you know, 2 or 3 fights, two fights at 154 pounds. Before moving on to this fight, I just don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know if Crawford has the agility to avoid Canelo. I think Crawford has the skills to be in the ring with Canelo, but does he have the agility and the movement that's going to be required to avoid Canelo in that power and that weight for 12 rounds at 168 pounds. So for me, I'm interested to see the outcome of the fight. I look forward to this fight, but I just think that Crawford is going to have to be special, which he is, but he have to be very, very special whenever they meet in the ring. So you heard it here first. It's TBISC, the best in sports entertainment.